Welcome back to the Hive, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about the revival of Speedway 1969, when they had the first year of Costa Mesa Speedway from the Whiteman Stadium of '68. We're going to talk about the top 15 riders right now. Coming in number 15 was Don Hawley. Don Hawley, he was a good rider. He was at the Whiteman Stadium in '68. He was doing well. He was in the program. He was always competing. And he came to Costa Mesa and he was a full-time rider. He was number 15, Don Hawley. Coming in number 14 was Stu Morley. Stu Morley, he was a good rider. They had the Morleys in the Speedway family in the early days. I believe he had a son named Tom Morley. He was a good rider. I raced against Tom. He was good. Stu Morley was a very good rider also. And he was racing Costa Mesa, doing a great job. Number 14, Stu Morley. Number 13 was Bruce Hauser. Rest in peace, Bruce. The brother of Greg Hauser. And Greg showed me some pictures, told me some stories. Bruce was an amazing rider. Greg said that Bruce was better than him. And Bruce was the father of Venus Hauser. And Venus and I were good friends. And we hung out at Speedway. And I hung out with Bruce. He was a good guy. Rest in peace, Bruce Hauser. Number 12, Jim Gresham. Rest in peace, Jim. He was a good rider, solid rider, and he was just always in the hunt. Jim Gresham was riding all the way until the late 70s. I got a chance to race against him, and he was good. And that was number 12, Jim Gresham. Number 11 in our countdown is Greg Hauser, the brother of Bruce. Greg was good. His number was 3. He shared a lot of videos with me in live stream. Greg had some really good videos. He's a good guy. He's a hard charger. You know, Greg would charge hard. He would crash. He was kind of crazy dude, but he was good. And Greg Hauser comes in at number 11 in our countdown. And he was just a solid rider, a hard charger, and a real Speedway rider. Coming in at number 10 was Swede Savage. Swede was a good rider. He rode TT. He probably rode motocross. He was riding all kinds of motorsports. He went into Speedway. And he was a star. Swede Savage was a star at the Whiteman. He moved over to Costa Mesa. He was mixing it up with the best riders. Swede Savage was a very talented rider. So talented, he moved on to the Indianapolis 500 cars. And unfortunately, in the late 70s or mid 70s, Swede Savage lost his life racing at the Indianapolis 500. But Swede Savage will always be remembered as one of the great riders of all time, one of the great talents. And coming in at number 10 was the amazing Swede Savage. Coming in 9 was the amazing John Carter. John Carter, he raced for the Team USA in the early days. He was a very star at the Whiteman Stadium. John Carter was amazing talent. He was really gifted. He was one of the top riders of his time. And he just did a great job, and he's passed away. Rest in peace, John. But Greg Hauser, he shared with me some of the videos and stuff of John Carter, and I got to watch him race. And John Carter was truly an amazing Speedway rider. Number 8 was Eddie Mulder. Now, he was just inducted into the Hot Shoe Hall of Fame in Las Vegas. Eddie was a really gifted rider. He was racing the TTs. He was a phenomenal rider. I mean, he was good. At the Whiteman, he was winning a lot. He was really smoking guys. He was a star. Eddie was just a talented rider. He could ride pretty much anything. And Eddie comes in at number 8. And he was just a gifted rider. That's Eddie Mulder. Number 7 best rider of 1969 at Costa Mesa Speedway is Larry Heiselman. There he is, another another one of those Whiteman Stadium throwbacks going to Costa Mesa. Larry was a great rider, especially before Costa Mesa. He was winning everything. He was schooling Barry Briggs and some of these guys. He was competing with the best of them. Larry Heiselman was truly a gifted rider, an amazing rider, and his son was on Facebook recently, and he didn't know how great his dad was or something, and everybody said, your dad was really good, and that's true. Coming in at number 7, Lucky 7, that's Larry Heiselman. The countdown continues at number 6, and number 6 best rider of 1969 was the Wild Man, Wild Bill Cody. Wild Bill Cody, number 41. He was a good rider, a young guy. He came from the TT circuit. Got introduced to Speedway. The money was there. Bill Cody was there. And he was a great rider. He went to Europe and he went to Australia. And he was racing the Europeans, Australians. Bill Cody was doing great. They wanted him to race overseas. But Bill Cody said, I make more money back home. So he stayed home. He didn't race overseas. But when he was in Australia, he was beating all the world champions on the long track. Bill Cody was a fantastic rider. I raced him a few times at the Santa Ana Bowl. He was good. Every time you raced Bill Cody, you know you had to put on your race face. Number 6, that's Wild Bill Cody. Number 5 best rider of 1969 was the big man, number 89. That's Big Mike Connelly. Mike was a good rider. He won his first championship as a teenager, like 16, in one of these enduro rides. He was racing against all the top riders. And who won that race? The young 16-year-old, the little punk. That was Mike Connelly. He was a great rider. He moved to Speedway. He was a fantastic rider. He got number 2 in the United States Nationals in a runoff of Mike Bass, his first United States Speedway Championship. Mike Connelly missed being a U.S. Speedway Championship by that much. Woo! He's a good rider. I met him in the pits when he was a young rider and I was a little kid. And Mike Connelly was a nice guy. He was so big, like a giant. He had to sit down in his seat, signing my autograph. Number 4 best rider in the 1969 Speedway season at Costa Mesa was the Sliding Man, Sonny Nutter. He won the California State Championship. I believe it was 2 years in a row, 68 and 69. He's a fantastic rider. Sliding Sonny Nutter was good and he was handsome. He was the first glamour boy of Speedway. He was just, the girls really liked him, and Sonny Nutter had some really good parties. And that's number 4. Sliding Sonny Nutter. Number 3 in the countdown, the top 16 riders, 15 riders in the 69 Speedway season at Costa Mesa was the amazing Michael Bass. Michael Bass was a young rider. He was up and coming. He quite didn't get his peak at this time, but he was a solid rider. Everyone knew Michael Bass was going to be a force to reckon with. And he had some battles with Rick Woods, and they had it out. He was good. And he became a United States Speedway champion in 72, I believe it was. He beat Mike Connelly on that runoff. We just talked about Mike Connelly. And he won 7 of 10 United States Speedway championships in the 70s. Michael Bass was the machine. He was good. And Michael Bass was number 3 in 1969, but later he moved up to be number 1. That was the machine, Michael Bass. And number 2 best rider in 1969 was the Rockhead Rick Woods. Rick Woods, his number was 2 also, and he won the 1968 United States Speedway Championship at the Whiteman Stadium. Rick Woods was on the cover of the program as far as the cover boy for the 69 Speedway. He was a star coming into Costa Mesa, and he was an amazing rider. He was in his prime. Rick Woods was really good. He had those battles with the Bass brothers. But Rick Woods was a rocket, and that's why he came in at number 2. He was an amazing rider. He won 2 Speedway championships in the 70s. Rick Woods was just unbelievable. He was one of my favorite riders personally. I loved watching Rick Woods ride. He was fast, he was smooth, and he was fantastic. That's number 2, the Rocket Rick Woods. #1 best rider in 1969 at Costa Mesa Speedway, was the United States Speedway champion of that year. And he was only year 2 of Speedway. This guy was talented. He raced other races like the flat tracks. He was in the mini riders. He was a star rider when he came to Speedway, but he had to develop only 1 year or so. And he became United States Speedway champion in his 2nd year. He was #1 in 1969, and that was Steve Bast. Steve Bast and his brother Mike, #3 in the countdown. They were an amazing brother team. Steve won United States Speedway Championship, 74, I believe. He was so good. He won the 69 and 74 Speedway Championship. He was great. He was fantastic. He was fierce. When Steve Bast was ready to race, I used to watch him when he was a rider, and he was like, Steve Bast was pumped. He was really into it. And he'd go out there, and when Steve Bast was on, nobody could beat Steve Bast. He was on fire. And he was #1 of 1969. That was the United States Speedway champion, Steve Bast. What was so cool about the 69 Speedway season, it laid the foundation for the Speedway today, the riders. It began everything at the Costa Mesa Fairgrounds. That was year 1 of Costa Mesa. Woo! There were many other riders who were really good in the 69 that we didn't mention. We apologize. There's a lot of riders. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. The top 15 in the summer of 69. It was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for hanging out with us in the Hive. And we're going to see you next time.